especially true when you submerge animatronics in it. The idea of being in the water with the twisting gears, sharp edges, and often terrifying imagery of these machines creates the ultimate nightmare fuel. In recent weeks, the general fear of submerged subject my Listaholic Top 10 treatment. So as voted on by the fans, here are the top 10 scariest underwater animatronics to give you submechanophobia. Number 10. The Crocodile, located at England's Watermouth Castle. Found in Devon County, England, Watermouth Castle is a small family theme park with a lot going for it. This park is centered around a large historical dwelling built all the way back in 1825. Among its surrounding attractions is a series of rides and curios for the whole family to enjoy. One of the main features of this park is an array of animatronic figures for guests to check out. Among these figures are gnomes, anthropomorphic animals, and a truly unsettling crocodile. Placed behind a stone wall and a caged window, this croc is shrouded in darkness until it surfaces. The only movement this creature seems to make is rising out of the water, and the only sound it makes is the water dripping off of it. The sheer simplicity of its design somehow makes it even creepier, and the lack of lighting only adds to its bone-chilling appearance. It just goes to show that when it comes to inciting fear in submechanophobics, sometimes less is more. Number 9. The Sea Serpent and the Giant Squid. Located on the defunct Submarine Voyage ride at California's Disneyland. Just because Disneyland is called the happiest place on earth doesn't mean it's never had anything creepy in it. Through the park's history, it's certainly had its fair share of unsettling attractions, perhaps enough for their own video. There's the Haunted Mansion, the original Alice in Wonderland ride, the now defunct Underwear Museum, and of course the famous Submarine Voyage. Built on the former spot of the failed Phantom Boats ride, guests would board a submarine and were taken on a journey into the deep seas, encountering several undersea creatures along the way. These included sharks, mermaids, and a terrifying deep-sea giant squid. Admittedly, video of this squid is pretty hard to come by, especially since it was found in a dark portion of the ride. This squid utilized compressed air and wires to move its tentacles, giving it an unnervingly lifelike appearance. But this wasn't the only notable attraction on this ride. The submarine would come across a sea serpent. Its long, scaly body would be shown at first, building up tension before guests come in contact with the face. Its big, bulging eyes and frozen, open-mouth facial expression has been described as cute by some and creepy by others. Outside of the water, this serpent is often considered to be far friendlier looking than it does underwater. But what do you think? Is this serpent creepy or cute? Number 8. The Swimming Dino from Tennessee's Jurassic Boat Ride. It's needless to say that the city of knew to check action called Jurassic. With ferocious dinosaurs and creepy crawlies, this ride is chock full of scares to keep you on edge. And it's like something straight out of a creepypasta. Just look at the jaw of this T-Rex. Holy shit. Though most of the dinosaurs aren't actually in the water, one mysterious creature was able to make this list. Towards the middle of the ride, a mysterious dinosaur head emerges from the water, baring its teeth at boats passing by. The fact that it gets so close to the boat is made even more startling by the devilish red light that shines upon it. Unfortunately, this animatronic reportedly stopped working around 2015. However, it still sits in the water to this day, with only the top of its head still visible from the boat. Overall, if you feel like giving your kids nightmares, I highly recommend a ride on this. Number 7. Nukin, located on the defunct Maelstrom ride at Florida's Epcot. Since 1982, it's based on featured a wide history and mythology. Guests would encounter Vikings, According to Norwegian mythology, the Nukin is a water spirit that lures people to their deaths in lakes and streams. On Maelstrom, this creature is portrayed by a submerged animatronic with what appear to be branches on its head. What makes the Nukin especially creepy is the bright yellow eyes that peer at guests through the dark. Even worse, the boat stops upon his appearance, before being sent backwards by the three-headed troll. This gives guests even more time to look at his bright, piercing stare. This guy surely must have given kids nightmares during its original run. Sadly though, this impressive dark ride was recently closed in 2014. Maelstrom was completely refurbished and rethemed to Frozen Ever After. The Nukin and the three-headed troll would be replaced by Queen Elsa. While Frozen Ever After is absolutely incredible on its own, it's still unfortunate that Maelstrom had to close for it. Number 6. The Sea Monster, located on the I Corsari ride at Italy's Gardaland. Perhaps the most notable theme park in Italy is the incredible Gardaland. This park is jam-packed with colorful and extravagant attractions for everyone to enjoy. From the ornate family rides to the wonderfully themed roller coasters, every attraction stands out. This is also true for the dark ride I Corsari. Most of these figures are tame, as if ascending from the watery depths of Davy Jones' locker, an aquatic hellspawn rises out of the water. Aquaphobics will gaze in horror as water spews forth from its mouth. After emerging, this creature will bare its face to the riders. The combination of its human-like face and puppet-like mouth makes its appearance particularly discomforting. Some passengers may say it's so scary, it'll make them wish they could scroll down to the comment section in real life. There's not much else to say about this dude, except you may be seeing him in your nightmares tonight. Number 5. The Shark Attack from Zeus. However, it's starting off with an introduction by the Wizard of Oz. Worst, a shilling enough, but immediately afterwards, a shark will rise out of the water right next to the boat, showing guests its razor-sharp looking teeth. And as if that weren't enough, another shark pops out on the opposite side of the boat to make sure guests on each side of the boat get a piece of the action. So if you're afraid of sharks, and water, and the dark, this ride would be a great exposure therapy. Number 4. Moby Dick. Located on the defunct Hunt for Moby Dick ride at Massachusetts Pleasure Island. After the success of Disneyland, several other theme parks started popping up across the country. One of these parks was Pleasure Island in Wakefield, Massachusetts. This park featured 2 main themed lands, a Western-themed area, as well as one based on a New England fishing village. The latter featured the park's most famous attraction, the Hunt for Moby Dick. Based on the recently released 1956 Gregory Peck film, this boat ride took guests on an excursion to find and hunt down Moby Dick. Guests would tangle with the rhinoceros, gaze on a few porpoises, and have a close encounter with the legendary white whale himself. For 1959, this animatronic was truly ahead of its time, measuring at an estimated 50 feet long. This massive, ghostly white animatronic would rise out of the murky water and bare its teeth, and the sight of it alone was quite intimidating. According to historian Robert McLaughlin, several past guests say this whale really spooked them as kids, with many saying they won't even go on a whale watch. It was undoubtedly an impressive sight. Unfortunately, during its run at the park, the animatronic would be extremely difficult to maintain. The design was problematic, with the wheels running on what seemed like a trolley track. Unlike roller coasters, the wheels didn't lock onto the track, and with the fiberglass whale being full of air, it would often float off said track. Since the natural pond couldn't be drained, a diver would have to be sent underwater to fix and realign it. Even after holes were drilled into the back to prevent it from floating, the ride was still a maintenance nightmare. Over the course of a decade, this park would quickly lose popularity. Its focus on slower, family-focused rides just couldn't keep up with the increasing demand for thrill rides in the industry, and towards the end of its run, the owners didn't even bother to maintain the whale, and the ride would cease to operate before the park shut down. Itself still sits in her website about it. That Efteling is when her website itself still sits in the water to this day. By the way, special thanks to Rob. We're going to talk about sail through the marketplace, face off with a giant djinn, and witness the horrors of the torture chamber. Yes, a torture chamber. This scene features a guard with a whip ordering prisoners to work the machines. This is already dark enough, but directly across this scene is where things get even darker. On your right, you'll see a prison cell filled with water. A prisoner can be seen clinging onto the bars, bobbing his head up and down, trying not to drown. Needless to say, this is certainly more unsettling than anything on Pirates of the Caribbean. Now just imagine it's a small world having a torture chamber. Then again, with that song that plays over and over again, some may say it already is one. Plus, Disney is no stranger to torture chambers. They did distribute Cars 2 into theaters after all. Number 2, the entire Universal Studios Hollywood's numerous technical difficulties, the ride would be vastly improved upon by 1993. This version is still remembered fondly to this day. This ride centers around guests boarding a boat and taking a scenic cruise around Amity Island. Things go awry though when the great white shark himself destroys another tour boat. State-of-the-art animatronics were used to give the shark a highly detailed and bone-chilling appearance. Being surrounded by water with no immediate escape only adds to the ride's terror, and the water's lack of transparency makes the shark's appearances even more startling. Out of the ride's 6 shark animatronics, 2 of them in particular are especially traumatizing. The first occurs in the boathouse, where guests attempt to hide from the shark. I personally remember thinking such a big shark wouldn't fit inside the small boathouse. Just as the boat is about to go outside though, the shark comes charging from the corner, with the interior darkness of the boathouse making him even more terrifying. Towards the end of the ride, the shark will bite a power line, causing it to be burnt to a crisp, and in all all my years on this planet, I've never screamed as hard as I did seeing this electrocuted monstrosity. To the disappointment of many, this ride was not to last, and in 2011, the Florida version would end up being replaced with more Harry Potter attractions. However, a near-exact clone of this ride still exists at Universal Studios Japan to this day, so if you're a fan of the original, a trip to Japan is highly recommended. Before we get to the number 1 spot, here are a few honorable mentions. First up is Mildred the Crocklebog at England's Bewilderwood. You can see this creature on the Bewilder boat ride. As you sail past her, she will spray water from her nostrils. Though she does look intimidating while submerged, a closer look at the figure reveals that she's much more cute than scary. The park website says, quote, "Mildred is really a vegetarian, and she often tries to make friends with butterflies, but people seem to get the wrong impression of her. As such, I simply didn't have the heart to put this lovely lady on the list. She is simply too charming to be scary, and the park even sells plush toys of her. How could I possibly call this poor girl scary?" Next up is the sea serpent from the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea ride at Florida's Magic Kingdom. This one just missed making the list. Like Mildred, I also thought this fellow was more cute than scary, though I must admit, the pictures of it sitting abandoned are absolute nightmare fuel. I mean, geez, this looks like something straight out of the SCP universe. Number 1. Bertha the Bunyip, located at Australia's Murray Bridge. This animatronic won my poll in a landslide. Originating from indigenous Australian mythology, the Bunyip is a mythological water-dwelling creature. Also known as the Mulyawonk, it is said to inhabit areas like swamps, riverbeds, and creeks. Mythology. Number 1. Bertha the Bunyip, located at Australia's Murray Bridge. This animatronic won my poll in a landslide. Originating from indigenous Australian mythology, the Bunyip is a mythological water-dwelling creature. Also known as the Mulyawonk, it is said to inhabit areas like swamps, riverbeds, and creeks, coming out at night to devour any human or animal in sight. In 1972, a man named Dennis Newell created his own rendition of the Bunyip as a coin-operated tourist attraction. Over the years though, the water would eat away at the exterior, leaving it more and more abandoned looking. And as if one of these creatures wasn't enough, the Bunyip was given a baby in 1982 and renamed Bertha. 18 years later though, both the baby and its mother were a truly terrifying pair, with their pupils washed out over the years. These pictures are beyond nightmare fuel. I can't even properly describe how disturbing they look. So to restore it to its former glory, this local treasure was given a major makeover in the year 2000. Nowadays, the Bunyip is much more cartoonish and less scary looking than it was before. On the this terrifying pair, with their pupils washed out over the years. These pictures are beyond is much more. Feel free to check out FastPass Facts video on Disney Sub Mechanics.
The Bunyip is a mythical